This episode of Distraction is sponsored by Landmark College, offering bachelor's and associate programs, short-term and summer programs for students who learn differently. Learn more at lcdistraction.org. Landmark College, the college of choice for students who learn differently. So you sit there at your desk just brooding, stuck in a fit of rumination, stuck in the DMN, in the default mode network, just feeding it onward and onward with your attention. You're basically fueling your own demise. You're fueling your own really negative once-over that you're giving yourself. Well, if you fuel it, you can cut it off, and that's what you have to learn to do. Don't feed the demon. Hello, and welcome to Distraction. I'm your host, Dr. Ned Hallowell, and today I have the great pleasure of responding to questions and comments we've received from you, our listeners. I really love doing these episodes, so please keep my love alive by reaching out and sending your email to connect@distractionpodcast.com. That's connect@distractionpodcast.com. Okay, let's get started with a couple of questions about ADHD and medication. The first email comes from Kathy. Hi, Dr. Hallowell. Hi, Kathy. Thank you so much for these wonderful podcasts. Thank you. I find them so helpful, supportive, and inclusive to multitasking, LOL. My question is, if once on a medication for ADHD, is it a lifetime commitment? Or is it similar to, say, losing weight and decreasing carbs for a diabetic or heart issue person? Their numbers may increase so well that they come off the medication and continue lifestyle changes. Thank you. Medication you take for as short or as long as you want to. So as short as never at all, and for as long as the rest of your life. And it's simply a matter of, do you still find it helpful? And does it create side effects? If you find it helpful and it creates no side effects, it almost always does cut your appetite, so as long as you don't lose weight. If you find it helpful and the only side effect is appetite suppression without unwanted weight loss, then most people decide to continue to take it. If the time comes when you don't find it helpful, or that if you stop it, you don't find that you miss it, if you've learned various strategies, so for whatever reason you don't need it any longer, then by all means stop it. The beauty of stimulant medication is you can start and stop any time. It's sort of like coffee, although coffee you can't stop abruptly or you get a wicked headache. If you stop stimulant medication, nothing untoward happens unless you're on a very high dose. So, these meds are very much take them if you find them helpful. Don't take them if they're not helpful or they cause side effects. There's no lifetime commitment whatsoever. There's no commitment longer than a few hours if you don't like what it does. These meds are very safe to start and stop, and they're very easy to use for that reason. Okay, thank you, Kathy, for writing in, and I hope that answered your question. The next question comes from Jonathan. Hi, I believe Dr. Hallowell includes himself amongst those whom medications don't work for. That's true. Although I can't remember if he ever discussed why. I don't know why, is the answer. I always wind up very short of patience for others when I take medications. Stimulants are the absolute worst. Oscar the Grouch on steroids. I'm a bad sleeper, so stimulants and many antidepressants are not a good choice. If 20 to 30% of us can't take meds, how can we compensate for the benefit that we otherwise would get? The distraction books do tackle these concepts, but for the non-book inclined, it would be nice to hear it discussed. Thank you for years of your help, Jonathan. Well, thank you, Jonathan. Yes, the meds don't work for me. I don't know why they don't work. They just give me side effects. However, there is a medication I do take every day, and that's called caffeine. Starbucks, and I are good friends, and my daily medication is caffeine. Now, what are the non-medication things you can try? Well, we just did a podcast which involves stimulating the cerebellum through physical exercises, 10 minutes twice a day. It's really cool. The cerebellum, it turns out, has rich connections to the front parts of the brain, which is where ADD action is. And if you do these exercises that stimulate the cerebellum, has a positive impact on ADHD as well as dyslexia. If you want to learn more about that, just go to distraction.zingperformance.com. That's distraction.zing performance.com. But the mainstay of non-medication treatment begins with education regarding this condition as a trait, not a disorder, and committing to developing the talent embedded in it. So it starts with education. Then physical exercise of any kind, not just the cerebellar stimulation that focuses on balance and coordination, but physical exercise of any kind is really good for your brain, really good for ADHD. Getting enough sleep really matters. Your brain will tell you how much sleep you need. It varies from person to person. It's the amount of sleep it takes for you to wake up without an alarm clock. So that's another element of a sound non-medication program. Meditation, if you commit to medication and do it regularly, can be tremendously helpful for this condition. Nutrition, we are what we eat, and our brains certainly do well on certain diets and badly on others. You want to avoid sugar, junk food, additives, colorings, anything that comes in tubes and packages and boxes tend not to be as good for you as whole foods. So whole foods are good. In terms of supplements, omega-3 fatty acid, I recommend a brand called Omega Bright, OMEGABRITE. Vitamin D supplement, I recommend. Magnesium actually can help with sleep as well, but it's involved in many chemical reactions throughout your body. So a magnesium supplement and a zinc supplement. Zinc seems to help people who take stimulant medication and makes the medication work better. Vitamin B complex is good. And then there are various other supplement programs. I happen to take one made by Amare Global, AMARE Global, as well as I've just started on Life Vantage, LIFEVANTHEE. I have no financial arrangement with these people. I'm just taking their product. So nutrition matters, and then regular doses of positive human contact. That's my favorite one. Love, connection, regular doses of positive human contact. It's really good for us. Most people don't realize that social isolation is as bad for you as cigarette smoking. Well, the opposite is also true. Connection is as good for you as exercise, diet, you name the tonic. Positive connection provides it. So get regular doses of positive human contact. A smile, a pat on the back, an attaboy. Reading a book you love, that's a connection. My favorite is a dog. Have a dog. By all means, have a dog. You will get positive contact. It's not human contact. It's even better. So get a dog. Try to do what you love and have a creative outlet. Having a creative outlet may be the most important intervention that nobody talks about. It's tremendously important. Find your inner entrepreneur. Develop a creative outlet. Really, really matters in managing this condition. Those are some of the basics of the non-medication approach. Marry the right person, find the right job. Those are right at the top of the list as well. Thank you, Jonathan, for this email, and please, all of you, send them in again. Let me go to another email. Dr. Hallowell, this is from Gray, a man named Gray. Dr. Hallowell, forgive my tardiness. I just listened to the Meatloaf episode while working through my podcast queue. Season 4, Episode 3, Learn to Go with the Flow is the Meatloaf episode. He was telling me, never apologize for loving Meatloaf. In that episode, I apologized. It is my considered opinion that a good meatloaf is one of the most comforting and rewarding foods on the planet. I completely agree that changing plans with less emotional turmoil is a skill that needs development. It certainly should be used when meatloaf haters, looking at you, Sue, that's my wife, require you to change your dinner plans. However, please know you are not alone in your fondness. Stay strong, Dr. Hallowell. I remain your devoted fan and a fellow Meatloaf enthusiast. From Gray Harris. Oh, thank you, Gray. I can't wait to share this note with my wife. And I will continue to champion Meatloaf. I will stick up for Meatloaf. And if any of you have a favorite meatloaf recipe, because the beauty of meatloaf is you can make it different every time, I'd love to hear from you. Send in your recipes for meatloaf. We did a session on my recipe for red beans and rice a while ago, and I'd love to hear back from you with a recipe for meatloaf, your favorite meatloaf recipe. Thank you, Gray. Thank you, Gray, for your moral support in my ongoing effort to champion the humble meatloaf. All right, here's the next email. Hello, Dr. Hallowell. This is from Dan. I need help. Well, I'll try to give it to you. I'm a 54-year-old male with ADHD combined type, chronic depressive disorder, and generalized anxiety disorder. I was reverse diagnosed with ADD after my son was diagnosed at age 7. That was 13 years ago, but I did nothing about my ADD until about a year and a half ago due to other struggles. In addition to ADD, I feel I also have rejection-sensitive dysphoria, or RSD. I believe the RSD is so bad that it impairs me from doing my job professionally and also negatively affects my family life. I'm operations manager and am in charge of 12 people that I need to interact with every day. I constantly experience feelings of being judged, criticized, and hated by everyone at work, which is probably not even true. And then there is my own self-talk, where I beat myself up constantly for being upset for, quote, no reason, unquote. Sometimes I get so into my head, I just close the door to my office and tap my feet at my desk, stare at the PC screen like I'm working, but I'm not. And since I'm not working and getting done what I need to get done and talking with my staff like I should be, I'm now worried I will get fired or even quit myself. Thank you, Dan. Well, Dan, that's quite an email. Let me tell you about something called the default mode network. The default mode network, and those of us with ADD, is the part of the brain, the connectome, the clumps of neurons that light up after you've completed a task. When the task positive network shuts down, the DMN, the default network, lights up. And in those of us with ADD, this is the seat of the imagination, but when it's not involved in a task, when you're not doing something, it imagines, it sends out these really negative messages. The DMN, I call it the demon. The default mode network starts sending out these really negative messages. You're bad, people hate you, nothing's going right, you're going to screw up. And you feed that demon with your attention. Why? Because it's gripping. You see, contentment is just too bland. And we with ADD, we don't do bland, we don't do boring, we want high stimulation. Well, these negative thoughts are riveting. You don't say he was riveted in contentment, but you do say he was riveted in worry, self-hatred, fear. And so, without realizing what you're doing, you feed your demon with your attention because it's so stimulating in a horrible way, but stimulating nonetheless. So you sit there at your desk just brooding, stuck in a fit of rumination, stuck in the DMN, in the default mode network, just feeding it onward and onward with your attention. You're basically fueling your own demise. You're fueling your own really negative once-over that you're giving yourself. Well, if you fuel it, you can cut it off, and that's what you have to learn to do. Don't feed the demon. How do you extricate yourself from it? Because it is very seductive, very compelling, very riveting. How do you stop feeding it with your attention? Well, you have to do something else. You have to activate the task positive network. You have to engage your imagination sufficiently that it will shut down the fuel supply, namely the attention you're giving the DMN. Do something else, anything else. Jumping jacks, throw open the window and scream outside, I love this glorious life. anything that has to be engaging enough to focus your attention on the other thing. And the demon cannot survive without your attention. So anything, do anything, slap your face, scream out loud. There's one guy on Google who's an expert in the demon, and he says he just goes blah, 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 blah. And that drowns out the demon. Now, it may sound silly, ridiculous, but it's anything but. This is highly sophisticated neuroscience at work. This is brain management, mind management. This is you triumphing over your inner demon by not feeding it with your attention. Same deal with rejection-sensitive disorder. There are other remedies for that, including medication. But before you go there, try this technique of engaging in some other task to shut down, shut off the demon, the default mode network. Thank you, Dan, and I hope my explanation introduced you to a new concept and a new way of handling negative thinking. Well, here we are with another email, this one from Shanda. I hope I pronounced that right, S-H-A-N-D-A, Shanda. I've struggled my entire life with never being on time. My friends often joke that I will be late to my own funeral. However, over the past 5 years, it's gotten progressively worse. I was fired in November 2018 after 5 weeks at a new job because of my inability to be at the office by 9 a.m. My contract at a temp job ended early because I could not be in by 9 a.m. I explained to both employers that it is a struggle for me, but they only had so much patience for me to get my act together. I've tried setting numerous alarms to get up at a reasonable time and numerous warning alarms that I need to leave, but in the moment I go past them, I assume that I can shave off a couple of minutes in traffic. What suggestions do you have for me, and how can I get my life back on track? Thank you, Shonda. Well, Shonda, first of all, you're anything but alone. This is an issue that lots and lots and lots of people struggle with. My questions would be, are you getting your ADD treated with medication? Because medication might really help. I don't know if you're on meds or not. You didn't mention that in the email. But, if you have ADD, and it sounds like you do with this procrastination issue, medication might be a simple and immediate remedy. But in the meantime, you should connect with a coach, someone who can coach you, because you've obviously demonstrated you can't do it alone. And that doesn't mean you're bad or weak. It just means you got to try a different approach. The one that I suggest is to get a coach, an ADD coach, and you can just Google ADD coaches and a gazillion will come up. Work with a coach, do it over the phone, and, you develop strategies. But not only that, the coach can be your moral support. The coach can be your atta-girl, atta-boy kind of person. Your coach can be your motivator and the person that holds you accountable. Again, since you seem to be able to sort of deceive yourself. So those would be my two thoughts. Are you taking meds for ADD? And number two, get a coach. This is a solvable problem for sure. Thank you, Shonda. Okay, that's it for today. If we didn't get to your question, we will try to respond in a future episode. So please, please, please keep sending them in. And send the questions or comments or ideas for shows. We like all of that. To connect@distractionpodcast.com. That's connect@distractionpodcast.com. I'm Dr. Ned Hallowell. Thank you so much for joining me in this community of distraction. Distraction is a project of Sounds Great Media. The podcast is produced by the absolutely spectacularly beautiful, enchanting, and enticing Sarah Gurton, and recorded and edited by the wise, enigmatic Pat Keogh.